Good evening, friends. Thank you for joining us on 13 Plus. I'm Mary Coleman. Hope your week is off to a great start. Well, newly invented toys and baby products are being tested on your own kids in your own home. That's because in most cases, new children's products can hit the market without much oversight on the testing of them, and the risks of potentially dangerous toys are only found after the real problems with real babies. National investigative reporter Lee Zurich digs into the system of retroactive regulation.
A mom.
The alarm bells were ringing very early on, and it was just ignored.
A pediatrician.
Babies died in those products, but it took thousands of sales for these things to pop up.
And a senator.
There were deaths and injuries that could have been prevented.
Three people with one concern: how baby products end up on the market and in our homes.
You wouldn't think that someone would be able to put something on the market that could potentially kill our infants, and the reality is that absolutely is the case.
Because real products end up essentially tested on real babies in real time.
Parents in general, they think that all of these products have been approved by a governing body, like the FDA does for medications. And there is nothing like that.
For all three, they can't talk about what's going on today without talking about what happened 5 years ago when the Fisher-Price Rock and Play was finally recalled, but only after around 100 babies died in the incline sleeper, with reports spanning years.
I just really struggle to understand how we aren't taking what we should have learned from that and applying it.
They say that recall happened too late, and a delay could happen again with any number of baby products that go to market, particularly those aimed to help babies sleep better and relieve their exhausted parents. The concern has to do with the process. In the United States, products like toys and blankets and baby clothes go to market without the government's approval. Regulations and standards, in fact, typically come in after a product is already on the shelves.
Just because something is on the market and many people have bought it and it seems to be okay and parents recommend it, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe.
And if there are safety standards, they're often initially voluntary, meaning companies choose whether to follow them, and they're often set through independent organizations. In the case of baby products, that's ASTM International, which hosts dozens and dozens of committees of experts, consumers, and industry insiders who decide the best and safest ways to manufacture products we all use every day. But that process is now facing fire. Critics say it has too much industry influence, reacts slowly, and relies too heavily on death tallies for action.
I think that one is enough, and I think the potential for more is horrific, and I think that we should be listening to the experts in this field when they tell us that it's not safe.
The latest product with alarm bells, weighted infant sleepwear, swaddles that contain weighted beads and are advertised by two major manufacturers to be a sleeping aid. It's a product category that's been in an ASTM committee now for 3 years, with no standards set.
It has been such a slow process.
But there's plenty of concern from doctors and government safety officials. The Consumer Product Safety Commission, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and other agencies say they're unsafe.
There's no evidence in babies that for sleeping babies that they're appropriate or safe. So we don't recommend them at all.
Dr. Rachel Moon is the Academy's chair for the Sudden Infant Death Syndrome Task Force. She's been worried about the product since she heard of it.
An infant, their chest is not made of bone yet. It's all cartilage. And so if you put any pressure on the baby's chest, it'll just compress. And when you compress the chest, that makes it harder for the baby to breathe.
Doctors say, of course, it would be dangerous and unethical to test out various products and sleep theories on infants to see if they stop breathing. So recommendations come from what they do know about the delicate body composition of a baby.
They're more theoretical in that nobody has proven or disproven, but they are evidence-based in terms of the physiology and what we would predict in babies.
But what that means is instead of a scientific setup before thousands of products are made and sold, homes are the labs, parents the scientists, babies the test subjects. An impromptu home study that might turn tragic.
And then the data that then they use to make decisions are the number of dead children or injuries, accidents that have happened. And so it's a very reactive process rather than proactive.
Shayna Rayfield lost her daughter Claire in a safe sleep incident at daycare. She's now in the committee considering safety standards for infant sleepwear, where weighted sleepwear is currently in debate for voluntary industry standards. The current task, counting incidents possibly tied to the product.
It's really frustrating. There have been meetings where it's been mentioned that there aren't enough infant fatalities to consider this an unsafe product. And in my head, I'm like, so what's your number? So what number of children that have died would then meet the threshold for some of these manufacturers to actually consider it a hazard?
While many major retailers have already pulled weighted sleep sacks after various warnings, they remain on the market and legal. Now Senator Richard Blumenthal and other lawmakers have proposed a ban.
I don't want to see a repeat of the rock and play debacle, where there were deaths and injuries that could have been prevented, but the sales went on much too long. And we see the same kind of dangers here. Children, infants may be at risk.
While tackling individual products one at a time is one tactic Congress can take, Blumenthal says the root issue is the CPSC needs more people and power to educate and regulate.
So I'm concerned about reliance on any kind of panel or body outside the government's oversight and supervision. The kind of panels that the FDA has to review new drugs, I think, are a better way to conduct this kind of standard setting.
Our team has found other products that have languished in committees for years. For example, there's still no ASTM standard for infant support pillows, which have been on the market for at least 15 years and are associated with at least 79 deaths, dating back to 2010. Instead, the CPSC spent months creating its own standard, adding design restrictions, testing requirements, and warning labels. We've asked ASTM International for interviews. Every request has been declined. In August, we attended a meeting between high-ranking ASTM officials and Consumer Product Safety Commissioner Richard Trumka, where he questioned them about their process. Some of those officials gave us their business cards, but after we reached out, their communications team told us in an email they wouldn't go on camera. While the mom, the pediatrician, and the senator continue to push for changes for children's safety, Shayna remains on the ASTM committee and continues to voice her concerns for the process and what could happen if things don't change.
The small amount of time where you're gonna be sleepless and have to function and have this infant who is very needy, that's such a small blip in time to be able to then enjoy them for the rest of their lives. And to know that there are products out there that have taken that away from parents and that we're setting standards for products that may continue to do that is unconscionable. It's just hard to believe.
Well, even with new inventions, there are some broad federal regulations everyone would have to comply with, even if a new product isn't specifically regulated. For example, there are flammability laws for children's clothing and sleepwear, and lead paint restrictions for kids' toys and furniture. Once a specific regulation is set for a children's product, companies must use government-approved labs for testing. Here we leave you with the live look from our Mount Bigelow cam. Look at that moon out already. Looking gorgeous out there. Hey friends, let's hope for some cooler temps this week. We hope you'll join us for 13 News Live at 10 for more of your news and weather. Until then, we'll see you later.